Hi, everyone. This is Jason Rodriguez with Zpryme. This morning, I'm joined by Kimberly Britton. She is the CEO of EPIcenter based in San Antonio, Texas. Kimberly, how are you doing this morning?
I'm doing great, Jason. Thanks for asking.
And how have you and the team been during the COVID-19?
We've been adapting like everybody else. And we've been, I have a friend who recently wrote a piece. He kept talking about, let's stop using the word pivot. It's overused. Let's talk shift. So we've been shifting and moving the way we do business, just like everyone's dealing with. And I will tell you, they've adapted extremely well. I took a look at our projects and productivity the other day, and they're all hard on themselves. And I ran down a litany of things that we've been able to accomplish in spite of COVID-19, and they start feeling a whole lot better. So I'm really proud of them, and it's no fun, right? We don't like
Yeah.
not being able to be together, and so, but we're doing just fine. So thank you.
Well, that's good to hear. And I think you said it right, which is a reason I brought you on to talk a little bit more about the shifts going on today in the context of transformation. So, just jumping right into it, how do you think COVID-19 has changed the game in the context of transformation? And maybe share a little bit about what you think companies, which companies will thrive as
Yeah.
they shift or pivot in transformation, and which will possibly struggle.
What I'm seeing in terms of the transformation landscape in the energy area and as it pertains particularly to innovation, things that were already either sound ideas that were gaining respect and traction, organizations with strong teams and good relationships will continue to thrive. I think that's true almost across the board in any industry, but particularly in energy. Where I see people may be struggling is where they're already on the front end of this. They're early stage. They haven't built as much of a network or relationships. They don't quite have as well formulated ideas. In other words, I see the venture capitalists that are looking to fund things. They're already funding and doubling down on what's in their pipeline already. That's one example of what I'm talking about. Things that were
Mm.
already in the pipeline will do well. I think in a time of change like this and uncertainty, there's always opportunity, right? You have to look for those windows and those places where maybe you can fill a vacuum that's been created by something else. I think the fact that wind is currently, for instance, the use of renewable wind is outstripping coal right now in terms of its utilization. Just the practicality of what's happening in the marketplace is going to drive some of what's behind it. So, in other words, I think renewables will do extremely well. Renewable technologies that are emerging will continue to do well, assuming that they have some of those good things in place with strong leadership, strong teams. It's going to shake out players that are weak. Period. It just is, and no amount of money can help a weak player. I mean, that's the truth. You can bolster them up for a period of time, but ultimately, it's going to take them down. And so I think you'll see that some of those places where people are worried about renewables not thriving in this environment, I think it will surprise folks. I think you can't write off oil and gas at this level, even though Texas has lost 1 million jobs in the oil and gas sector. You'll see some strength coming back, particularly in the natural gas arena. And some we're moving and working hopefully in some additional transformation and making the use of natural gas cleaner and moving that forward. So I think you'll see some technologies that will support that because the prices just continue to be low, and it's still such a backbone of our utility fleets. So
Thank you. So, I know you guys work a lot with utility partners as well and have done so over the past few years. So, what are you seeing some of the biggest hurdles for utilities when it comes to innovation? Maybe, maybe before this outbreak, and then maybe something you might see kind of in this next year where they may struggle in terms of driving innovation.
Jason, bandwidth, bandwidth, right? Utilities, their primary job is keeping the lights on, keeping us all in power. And there was already a challenge and a competition for their internal bandwidth to focus on new and innovative solutions. However, there are market pressures coming to bear on them in terms of customer expectations and also just in terms of the movement of technology and then the pressures around climate action. So those forces are squeezing that bandwidth even more. So what we're seeing is utilities already challenged to pay attention to incorporating innovative technologies in their systems, their operations, or even more so in the climate of a pandemic. Because they're meeting daily, their leadership teams are having to gather on a regular basis. So where EPIcenter can kind of step in, and what we're trying to do with our clients is at the speed of our clients is to say, look, let us focus on winnowing through and vetting those technologies that you've already expressed interest in, that are a part of your strategic priorities. Let us distill those down, and we'll bring it to you in bite-sized pieces so that we can keep that process moving in spite of this. And sometimes we're a little forceful, because we're saying, yes, you COVID is going to be here for a while, so let's settle into whatever this next normal is. Not new normal, it's the next normal, because there will be other normals behind it. And so let us help you focus on that. But there are other utilities and others that they have their internal processes. But I guarantee they're just as challenged as anyone else, and more than ever, to do this. But frankly, it's like when there are budget squeezes, there are certain things you are tempted to cut, but you can't cut. And this is one of those areas where you've got to continue to focus on what's new and innovative, because at the end of this is a pressure that's even greater to move and to transform and to change than there was even before COVID. So we've got to keep the work going.
Thank you. So moving that forward a little bit, and another great aspect of what the EPIcenter has been able to do in terms of one, highlighting your relationship with CPS Energy, the city, and different players in the market. You guys have been able to create an ecosystem relatively fast to support startups and some of the works you guys do, your team does there. So can you tell me why that's important to create that ecosystem? So it's not just about have a lot of talented companies and talented individuals, but you guys have seemed to be able to create this platform for success there, and are in the process of doing that constantly. So why is that important? And it seemed to be a key part of the strategy early. And so just want to see if you can share some with our audience about that.
Thank you. Well, I'm employee number one and the only CEO EPIcenter has had. I've been there 4 years, and that's about how long our programming has been in place. And I think a lot of people don't realize we're a little different than a lot of energy innovation and thought leadership organizations in this. We combine some services that are not always linked together. We do have an energy incubator and accelerator that serves startups at any given stage. And we see a lot of early stage energy work. We serve the utility industry, but we also serve other energy aspects, oil and gas sector, and others. And then we have our think tank side, which does our programming, our summits, our global lecture series, and we're beginning to publish and do research and things like that. And then lastly, we have this advisory services side where we are serving clients like utilities with their innovation bandwidth, and their projects that move innovation forward within their ranks. And the neat thing about that combination is that it is, one, a little unusual, and two, it allows us to serve a continuum of the whole energy innovation ecosystem, but we don't do it alone. We have about 80 strategic partnerships, of which Zpryme is really important and definitely a tier one partner to us as well. The city, certainly, other municipalities. We work regionally within the state of Texas. And those partnerships and collaborations allow us to do so much more than we would alone. We are small and nimble, and we're able to move quickly to respond in a customized way within advisory services, within the incubator, within the think tank. And that allows us to look at the technologies that are out there, vet them, but not just leave them, like bring a startup in, but not just leave it at the doorstep of a utility or other company, but to be able then to be the boots on the ground, get into, I say get into the nitty gritty, the dirt of it, and where the real work happens. And not everybody does that, Jason. And I think that's why we're beginning to see some really powerful results, so that when innovation is happening, it's not that that wasn't happening internally to these large energy organizations. It's the speed and, frankly, just the joy of it, to be able to move it faster and have the process be more satisfactory to both the people on the outside and the people inside. So I think that's the secret sauce, if you will, of EPIcenter, if there is one. And of course, I have one of the most amazing teams on the planet. But other than that, that's what's happening. And so to have this ecosystem that's not only us, we talked earlier about the Incubate Energy ecosystem. I learned so much from the other energy incubators throughout the US that are doing amazing work as well. And so working together along with other thought leadership organizations like you guys definitely is bigger than the sum of our parts. It makes us more powerful. And frankly, for energy transition to truly happen and take hold, and have a life to it, it's going to take all of us talking to not only ourselves and industry, but gaining a traction with the wider audiences, like the business leaders and the chambers of commerce and others. And those are areas where that's who EPIcenter is talking to. We're taking all this amazing stuff that industry is doing, and we're disseminating it outside of our ranks internally to get their buy-in, to get them to understand how to leverage energy transition for their own lives. So that's kind of a little bit about who we are and what we're up to. But again, it depends on many more players than just who
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that and talking through that secret sauce. I really appreciate that. So to conclude here, I wanted to end on your thoughts on customers, especially with utilities and how they transition. I think leading up to this year, there was a lot of enthusiasm happening at the customer side, on the technology side, but also just behaviorally of what customers are doing. So what is your advice in terms of how utilities should be thinking about that customer change in the terms of innovation?
Oh, I think that I talked about expectations earlier, and how expectations of customers are influencing many industries, particularly to the way people consume. Clearly, segmentation is important for utilities, just like any other organization that looks at its customer bases, because every customer is different in terms of what they're wanting. And your younger customers may want something else, your older customers may need something else. And to understand that customer now is more important than ever. But the other issue is not waiting until your customers tell you what they want. I think that some utilities have lagged in terms of their intentionality of talking to their customers and doing research on them in a way that they can't afford to anymore. They've got to get out in front of it a bit more. I see the tendency. I see a desire. I don't always see the result happening yet. And I think in light of this pandemic, at least for a season, there's going to be a whole lot more impatience. People are going to be less patient about change and transition in terms of how their needs are served. And it's going to be incumbent on utilities in particular to figure it out more proactively than ever.
Thank you so much, Kimberly. Thanks for sharing with us today. And hopefully you can come on sooner rather than later and share some more as this progresses.
Thank you, Jason.